Dwayne Carson, principal at Carson Consulting. One of the big things for me is I've been around, wine and spirits pretty much all my life, but really a focus over the last 5 years. I spent about 3.5 years at wine and spirit wholesalers, doing their outreach, meeting with a lot of the wholesalers, meeting with a lot of suppliers, taking up issues that are important to the people in the industry. And then about 2.5 years ago, the hemp beverage was really brought to my attention, how it had grown in the last 7 years. And so over that time, it's just been understanding, educating, and seeing if we can find a pathway.
Exactly. And I'm really excited for this conversation because you and I both see the entire industry as a whole, and we kind of have our feet in both, all the different categories. So that's a lot more exciting to have a conversation like that with the legislative part as far as what's going on. I just got out of the Hemp Beverage Expo last week in Austin, Texas, and there was a lot, roller coaster of emotions there. So kind of where do you, I'm not asking for a crystal ball or anything like that, but in honesty and all this, kind of where do you see things going? And you're located in DC as well?
Yep. I'm located in DC. I'm about 3 blocks away from the Capitol. I will say when I got into this issue 3 or 4 years ago, there was a lot of gray. There was a lot of education that needed to happen. There were a lot of members who were like, I don't really want to deal with this. I would say over the last 8 months, you've seen a lot of members who had swore that they didn't want to touch this issue, now embracing this issue and realizing we've got to find a fix. Something's got to be done. I personally feel that something will be done this year. Now, whether that's an extension, whether that's a regulation bill, we can get in that a little bit later. I strongly feel that there's enough on both sides of the aisle in both chambers that they want to get something done or get some sort of potential extension to where they can work to getting something done.
I agree with that. We actually just got out of the biweekly meetings with the Hemp Beverage Alliance, our conference call there a couple hours ago. And it's still, it's a mix. It's a cautiously optimistic, but also preparing yourself. And I saw today a couple different companies in the hemp space have kind of laid off their sales team. And that's always the first that's always, and I'm particular about it being from the biz dev side and owning my own business for 18 years. I think that I'm going to be honest with anybody that cutting your revenue stream before you trim anything else always seems like the easiest one, but it's also, I think, like it kind of shoots yourself in the foot a little bit.
Yep. And I'll tell you this, Nate, what's been also that gives me hope is that I have spoken to staffers. Now, I will not name any staffers. I will not say officers or what side of the aisle they're on. But they have said that, like, hey, I have a hemp beverage with my husband on a Friday evening instead of a glass of wine, and I enjoy it more. There's a reason why, Total Wine has a section that a lot of the suburban moms really go towards. When some people think that this is an issue that DC isn't understanding, DC is very much understanding. Where you're seeing a lot of members are at, they're saying, what can we do? Right. And then you and I both know this. Anything moving at the federal level takes time.
Molasses.
And it's molasses. And I mean, I'll even go back to, we fought against this for the last 2.5 years before it was put into effect. And we can go into that a little bit later because I have my own problems with how it was put into effect. But, we were pushing back on this for 2.5 years when it happened. Right. And then it did happen. And the other good thing that I'm seeing is you have members of Congress, subcommittee chairs, and ranking members of the committee with jurisdiction saying, we want to do hearings. Bring us all your ideas. We want to mark this up. We want to pass this. You currently have an administration who is sending letters to the Hill saying, we need to get this done. Something needs to happen. And then you've got good members on both sides, but I'll say on the ranking member side, like Angie Craig, who are like, from Minnesota, who are saying, hey, I'm seeing all the bev facilities that are getting harmed, all the distilleries that are getting harmed because people are starting to hire, lay off sales reps and sales forces because they see what's coming down.
I want to talk a little bit before we jump into the minutia of the legislation. Let's talk a little bit about, because of our positioning in the industry and toggling both categories of alcohol and non-alc and hemp and all that stuff. Let's talk about how interdependent they all are, because I think that there's one thing in this argument that gets detached is everybody's like, oh, the cannabis hemp hippies over here with the tie-dye and then the alcohol guys over here. Let's talk about how interconnected they all are and interdependent upon each other, both to help kind of, let's be honest. I mean, I've been in the alcohol industry 22 years. this has the potential to prop up some losses that we have here, as well as provide a distribution, sales strategy, foundational network for the hemp community when they collaborate together. So kind of jump into your perspective on that.
I'm going to tell you right now, and this is you and I just having a conversation, with a couple people living in. I have no idea why more in the alcohol industry are not embracing this. It's no secret to anybody else. The generation, not the upcoming generation, the COVID generation doesn't drink, right? Alcohol sales is down. I mean, we can say that, right? You have GLP-1s. A lot of people.
And pre-COVID, let's also say that pre-COVID we were down.
Pre-COVID they were down. COVID they came back up, but then you had that swing right after COVID with the GLP-1s and everything else. You have the Oura rings that are coming out. People, and so people are looking for choice. And you'll hear me say this through our conversation all the time. Like, as long as they have a mixture of choices, I think people are relatively happy. And so for me, when I look at this, I'm sitting here like, man, if the alcohol industry embraced the hemp products, right, and use that under their brand, now you're giving the consumer an extra choice, right? Now, again, as I said, there needs to be regulation on that side, and we can get into that and everything under the sun with TTB, trade tobacco. Sorry. We can get in that, a little bit later. But I feel like both sides can help each other, and both sides are stronger if this is done correctly.
You're exactly right, and it's interesting too. Like I was on a panel last week at the Hemp Beverage Expo with Matt Gasek from the economist for the Brewers Association. And we talked about their recent report that came out from the Brewers Association stating that these on-premise tap rooms that exist, the ones that are thriving are the ones that have a diversified beverage portfolio and haven't just relied on their beer.
Right.
And I think that's a hard thing. And I'm going to pick on a couple because I've been in this business a while. It's like an ego thing, and it's like a bunch of other things where it's like, let's evolve, guys. Let's speak to the alcohol community. And I want to reiterate what you just said. Wait, and we do curse on here, so wake the fuck up, guys. Yeah.
Well, Nate, I will tell you this. We've been in the industry. I love everybody in the industry. I will say that it's what I have found in this industry is I would love us to move like a destroyer naval ship.
Yes.
And I feel like we move like a carrier, right? And I liken it to where there's the opportunity. I've been around long enough in DC where taxis were the big thing, and then Uber came along, and taxis didn't evolve, right?
Yep.
And then they kind of got taken out, and that's kind of what I'm looking at the industry. Like, there's no putting the genie back in the bottle, right? And so, and there's enough resources to be made on both sides to do it responsibly. And again, no advertising towards kids over 21, do it responsibly and everybody can come out a winner. Let's all just kind of put our egos aside a little bit. That's all.
Exactly. And I won't share the names of the offices, but when I was down in DC meeting with staffers and some Congress as well and senators, I brought up an interesting thing because everybody likes to lead with, we're protecting the children. Like we're saving the children and we're protecting the children. I'm not saying that mockingly, and I'm not saying that lightly. I believe in that regulation and fully and support it all the way through and always have with 21 and over with alcohol. But where I gets me in a weird way is in the last 6 to 12 months, and I'm going to name these names, so I apologize if they're your clients, but it's like you look at hard Welch's grape juice, hard, Arizona iced tea, hard Sunny D. We're looking at these things and you look at it like a very practical way. And I pulled out my phone and I showed these things where I'm like, the TTB is clearing these. Like these, I've approved label. I've sent labels in for approval. Like I had one where it was a tequila margarita and the font for tequila was larger than margarita, and they sent it back and made us redo it so the font was the same because they felt the consumer would get confused if it was a straight spirit or a cocktail. Yet we're passing through these things, and I don't think the practicality of that is even there. Where this stuff is lock and key in a smoke shop, in a vape shop, in a liquor store, whatever. Those things are sitting at the liquor store next to the other things. When we go to a barbecue on the 4th of July and we got our kids Welch's grape juice, because if you're buying Welch's or Sunny D hard, it's probably because you support the brand in the non-alcoholic space. They're sitting in the same cooler. They're sitting in the same fridge. I'm really at a loss to understanding how that is the pillar that we're going to stand on as to why we're going to make this pass. Yeah,
because I will tell you the reason, and it's going to drive me crazy. Because people on the Hill do not see alcohol and hemp as the same.
Exactly. That's next. So I wanted to hear, and I wanted to be out there for people to realize that you're at a loss of perception.
Yeah. Like that's the last 2.5 years of going to the Hill and talking to members and having to correct members and staff who are like, oh, the weed people, I mean, it's just, or reefer comes out and I'm like, guys, we use that word still? I thought that went away like 30 years ago.
Wait, when you're referencing a black and white documentary, you lost me.
I just remember just sitting there being like, okay, let's back it up. And I was like, let's walk through, what low dose hemp actually looks like. Let's walk through, how we're not advertising it. I will say this because he did it. Mitch McConnell was on the Senate floor last year with pictures of the Skittles that looked like Skittles, that were something else. And it's also a scare tactic, right? Now, Nate, the problem that I have with some of the people on the other side of the issue that push this is they said the things to scare people, but the legislation that they pass doesn't do what they said it would do.
Exactly.
And that's the irritation I have because, and I now tell members and their staff this, there's two things I would say to them. I say, okay, so this closes the loophole. Okay, great. We'll use your terminology right now. But if this closes the loophole, who's going to come in front of Congress when the raids start?
Yep.
1. 2, what black market are you guys going to focus on? There will be a shortage of hemp. People will have to get it from another country. Is that going to come in from China? Which is what a lot of these members on both sides hate. But the above all, and this is why I get so irritated, I'm going to get a little bit wonky, I apologize, is we passed the authorizing language. For those who don't know, you have two parallel types of bills that run in Congress. Those who authorize a project, and then you fund that project with appropriations, right? So the original language was an authorizing language, basically saying we're going to authorize this. Their words closed the loophole. They could not pass it out of the Agriculture Committee. So the appropriator, the funding guy, said, let me take that language. I'm going to put it in a must-pass bill. You remember opening back up the government? Crappy thing to attach it to, but we'll get there in a second. The problem that I have is the funding guy passes said bill. Nate, they didn't attach any funding to it. How are you going to enforce it? What new funds are being attached to this legislation so you can say, now you want to close the loophole and enforce it and make sure the bad guys are not selling it to kids and not at the convenience store, but you didn't attach any money to FDA, TTB, DOJ, you didn't attach any money. So now what you're doing is you're having a piece of legislation that goes in effect. The good guys are going to say, you know what? I don't want to be a criminal. I hate to do this, but hey, we're going to move into something else. I don't want to lose my license. And the bad guys are going to say, hold up. So what happens if I keep acting this way? Y'all don't have any money. Y'all don't have anybody checking the stores. And so this stuff, and so that to me is what I'm saying, like the legislation is actually pushing the good actors out and opening up the gray market even more. And members are starting to figure that out. And that's why you're starting to see a lot of members, and I'll name one, Congressman Russell Fry from South Carolina. You're starting to see a lot of members who have been in the industry or who are aware of the industry that are kind of like, okay, this makes no sense. And that's a good thing. I wish this would have happened last year, but sometimes it takes something like legislation passing to open up the federal government that should have never been attached to legislation to open up the federal government that kind of wakes people up.
It's also, and I've said this once before, so I'm comfortable saying it. It's also un-American in a way, and I want to say why it's un-American is, and I want everybody to understand that I'm not unpatriotic. I'm actually the opposite. A law was passed. Mm-hmm. Call it a loophole. Label it whatever the hell you want to label it. But entrepreneurship thrived.
Yes.
And I get chills every time I say it. And the fact that we as an American society and American government, instead of doing what the majority of the industry is saying is, here's all of the stuff. We've written the bills. We've written all the stuff. We're saying regulate us, tax us, do everything. And exactly like for me, and I'm sure for you as well, yeah, treat it like alcohol. Let's treat it like the beverage side of things. Let's treat it like alcohol. The rest of it, I admit, the rest of it is a little bit more complicated and It might take a little bit more time. but we can at least carve a pathway through the safari and machete the shit out of it with beverages and start there, because we all have to normalize, just like we said at the beginning, alcohol is can do no wrong, but hemp can do all wrong. We need to normalize the two so they're together, and it's going to start with a can. It's going to start with an aluminum can.
I agree with that. There's a couple things I would say to you is, one, you hit this so much on the head. This was the American dream. This, for those 7 or 8 years, was like the oil tycoons. This was like a market was created. And this only happens maybe once in a lifetime, where you can say, okay, I can take what I have saved up. It doesn't have to be a lot. And I can start something, and I can invest in something, and I can do something the right way. And now I'm seeing the American dream come true. And this is why people lose faith in their government. Because when you do that and you didn't do anything wrong, they passed something, you did it right. You're able to feed your family. You're able to buy that tractor. You're able to buy that truck. You're able to fulfill what you define as the American dream. And then people in Congress, through a backdoor deal that they attach it to the bill to open up the federal government, snatch that away. This is why people lose faith in their government. Now, no one's telling anybody to be harmful to the government. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, as I continue to talk to politicians on both sides of the aisle, and when you explain it to them like that, it kind of hits a little different, right? And so now they'll also come back and say, well, there's some bad actors in this industry, and there have been bad actors, their words, in this industry for the last 7 years. And Nate, I will tell you, the problem that we run into when we're talking to members on the Hill is pretty much every member that's against it or kind of negative towards it has a story.
Yep. And
they have a story where they got a 25 milligram gummy, or they had a friend. They did not. I'm sorry. They had a friend that got a hold of a 25 milligram gummy and was laid flat. And so I'll even give you one. You're going to laugh. I'm not going to drop names, but I was talking to a member of Congress whose friend is a business partner of a famous rapper from the 90s. And he told the story of the rapper got a gift basket, and it was a really, really hard gummy, and they didn't realize how potent it was. And you would be amazed. I mean, I'm going through my head right now. I can think of 3 other members of Congress who have given me similar stories. That's what we have to push back against.
You know what I told them when I heard that story? I hear the same stories because I'm sure they all just cycle the same stuff every time somebody walks in the door. I looked at them straight in the eye every time, because I have no qualms. I'm in Hail Mary mode.
Right.
I got nothing to lose. I've been running this business for 18 years, and I don't care, because I've always met obstacles and challenges with reality. Mm-hmm. And the reality is harsh sometimes. And my response to that every time is, are you a lifetime cannabis consumer?
Right.
Well, no, obviously not. Okay. If you weren't a drinker, I wouldn't have set a 19 or a 15% bourbon barrel aged stout in a cup and gave it to you and then expected you to drive home.
Right.
That's available on the shelf down the street. And every time I say that, there's silence, and it sucks the energy out of the room, because it's the truth. Because the more we stop villainizing this industry and compare it to what is available on the shelves today. I've worked in retail and alcohol. I've had people try fake IDs. I've had things like this. I had all these different things. These bad actors exist in the consumer space, and they exist in the retail space, and they exist in the manufacturing space. And they're in every single industry. And we're not asking to ignore it. We're asking to, go arrest them, go raid the places. But you better bring documentation, and you better bring evidence that they're breaking a law, not just these PR stunts where, and for example, like my whole background academically is public relations. That's where my degree is and everything like that. Watching the news, grabbing these things and putting these things up like they just did a drug bust, and they're putting things up while they're like Ohio yesterday had all the Skittles and everything like that. It's the same photo that they're using and circulating. And the reason also, is because the pixelation is getting worse on the photo. That's what.
It's one again, and you hit on something that I think needs to be spread far and wide, which is we've got to start normalizing this, right? And it does come back to that suburban mom, that potential employee that instead of having that glass of wine wants to have a hemp beverage, right? I will tell you that what gives me hope is I was in Wrightsville, North Carolina, and I was at a bar, and I remember seeing, as you were saying, they had all the different beers up, but they had some THC beverages as well. And I was seeing that, individuals were ordering the THC beverages. And so it's normalizing it with drinking alcohol. The other thing I would say, Nate, is sometimes time needs to take its course. There are some, and again, I wish every member of Congress well, but there's some members of Congress who have been around a very long time. And, it's just that stigma is just there with them. And then you see the members that are coming in, the younger members that are kind of like, oh, yeah, there's no putting the genie back in the bottle. If we're going to do this, let's do this right. Again, I'm from Western North Carolina. Moonshine to the end, right? I laugh because, some people still make moonshine in North Carolina. But when you actually read up on moonshine, you're like, I'd rather get the regulated moonshine. Don't really want to go blind, don't want to lose my teeth, and certainly don't want to die.
My family is in rural Pennsylvania, and I have some distant cousins that, let's just say, when you're at the farm on the porch and you see the smoke on the holler hill, you know what's going on.
Yeah. The apple pie will be here shortly.
A few weddings with that.
But that's what I go back to, and that's like when I talk to these members, and the more that you said again, the more you're talking to members and walking them through it and saying hey, and I tell them hey, go home and talk to your family. Because there's somebody, whether it's your wife's mom, your mother-in-law, whether it's, your son's friend who suffers from, PTSD from doing tours, or whether it's, someone with MS, someone has a story to where this is something that they can cure them. And it goes back to what I tell people, choice. Now, you're right. On the bev side, that's pretty easy. I think we can do that. The others, I think we have to have a conversation, right? There's some good ideas out there how to do it. Yep. Now, what I am about to say is going to be controversial, and, people are going to have to get over it. The one thing that I have heard unanimously from members of Congress, there has to be a middle guy. There has to be a middle guy. And I told him, I was like, 3-tier, and it's like, there has to be a 3-tier. And I asked them, I was like, well, walk me through it. They're like, if you think that we're going to pass a bill that's going to allow direct to consumer so they can order it online and ship it direct to their house, absolutely not. And I understand the individuals who may be against that. But the thing that I got back from members of Congress is someone's got to be liable. We've got to be able to bring somebody in front of Congress if those Skittles or those things in the gray market that are being advertised towards kids, we've got to be able to track that down ASAP. And the best way to do that is to have some sort of wholesaler, some sort of middleman lined up that can not just collect the taxes. And let's be honest, guys, this is the federal government. They want their taxes, right? But also if there's the recall, that was the big thing that a lot of members are like, if we do this and we do this correctly, just like you were saying, if Jack Daniels is saying it's 40 proof and it's 50 proof, right? And TTB finds it, you got to take that off the shelf and you got to make sure that gets out and the right repercussions are made. They see the same thing with this issue multiplied by 100. They want to make sure if we're going to continue this market, we need to make it as safe as possible. And to have it as safe as possible, we got to have somebody that we can say, take that off the shelf right now.
That's exactly it. And I worked many years in vice president of business development and brand management in the wholesale world in Pennsylvania. And we've had those with Sam Adams. We had recalls. Corona, we had recalls where a chip of glass came in. They didn't know where it was. Miller Coors would have a recall. A lot of craft brands. I managed 30 different craft brands actually in the 2010 to 2017. We had recalls all the time. And it was the efficiency that out of a distributor can take care of those recalls, can get that stuff back, credit back, whatever they need to do. That I believe 100% in what you're saying there as well. I think over time, DTC, once the regulations can reopen up. But initially, if that's a compromise, that's an okay compromise. Because also what it does is it allows these legacy family distributors they need the green light. I work with these distributors all day long, so do you. Yep. Their family lineage, people don't realize these are 4th, 5th, 3rd generation businesses. They're not going to take, their risk mitigation is so low. Their risk profile is low, and we have to respect that because their lineage and their history. But at the same time, they've all told me as soon as that green light's lit, they are running.
Man, I'm enjoying this conversation because, And I know some people are gonna be like, well, these are the legacy families, continuing to get rich and everything else. And I'm sitting here like, but you know what? They bring trust. They bring trust when these, and again, I can only relate to the members of Congress who I'm talking to. When certain people walk in and say, you know what, that's going to be under our banner, and they have a family history of 50 to 60 to 70 years of making sure that things are done right, all the T's are crossed, members feel a lot more comfortable, because I'm going to tell you what members of Congress don't want, especially going into about 3 to 4 months before an election. They don't want a mother standing up in a town hall saying that her son or daughter got a hold of something. All right. Now, again, and laid them flat, had to take them to the hospital, had to have a stomach pump. God forbid something else worked, had an allergic reaction to it. That is a member of Congress's just like total nightmare, because you have a concerned parent and their whole thing is, why didn't you take care of this? Right? That's what you're fighting back against. So in a lot of the members' minds, they're like, until I can have the trust, until I can have regulation put in place that I can pretty much as possible guarantee that doesn't happen, I'd rather just close the loophole. And that's where we are.
Yeah, it is. And it's also just I want every brand that's listening to also know that these behind door conversations are also with grocery chains, with convenience store chains, those that are family lineage, low risk like type places. They're all saying the same thing. I'm not going to publicly endorse it until the law is written. When that law is written, we are clearing the shelves and bringing you in. Right. And that is the piece that's like, that's the most teasing piece, I'd say, and frustrating. Yeah, teasing and frustrating is that these places, and the problem though is it's a cart before the horse, because also you have associations I will not name. I have named them before and I got told to stop. National associations for distributors that are literally telling distributors not to participate in our advocacy campaigns. Like we have a distributor in North Carolina, Regulate Don't Ruin NC is with Tryon Distributing, and it's a statewide campaign that we have going on. I think we're creeping up on 1,000 petitions right now. We've spent $0 on advertising other than putting posters up in retail across North Carolina. That shows me right now, and we're going to hit the amplification with paid distribution in August when we get closer. We have a strategy for that. But right now, the organic feedback, and these are people that are signing the petition with their cell phone, their email, their mailing address. They are residents of the state saying, no way are you taking this off the shelf. And on the flip side, I'm getting the same thing in Pennsylvania, because we don't have it on the shelves in alcohol, because the only law that exists in Pennsylvania is that hemp and alcohol cannot be manufactured, sold, or distributed in the same place.
Pennsylvania's got some weird laws to begin with when it comes to alcohol.
I've been living my whole life in it, man. It's people don't realize that 10 years ago I was advocating and doing this to get 6-packs into places instead of cases. And then 8 years ago, we were fighting to get 6-packs into convenience stores and grocery stores and gas stations, because our government thought that if you bought alcohol and pumped your gas at the same time, you automatically were going to be drunk before you got home. Like, that's literally what they would say is, how do we mitigate drunk driving? I'm like, that's not the argument, guys.
It's not the argument. It's not the argument. My in North Carolina, my niece and nephew, when they were young, they love to refer to it as the alphabet store. And my mom would be like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, alphabet. Well, she means the ABC store. Yeah, that's a different connotation to kids than it is to adults. And so
you guys are just hooked on phonics down there, you know? No, it's some wild stuff. So tell me, I want to know a little bit in the back end of this. I want to know a little bit about your story, man. Like, how did you get into this line of work, and kind of what type, not necessarily naming or whatever, but what types of businesses you work with outside of this too?
Yeah, no, I'll give you my whole story, because it's one where I was a jack of all trades and a master of none. Went to college in Tulsa, Oklahoma, played baseball, had a great time out there. Complained about the government so much that finally someone looked at me and was like, well, why don't you go and change it? And I was like, that's a great idea. Had no money. And so I moved back home to Western North Carolina. I worked as a server at Applebee's for a year, saved up as much money out of Hickory, North Carolina, and then moved up to DC, started working, interned, served tables at Applebee's in Falls Church while I interned. And then I got to work on Capitol Hill for 12 or 13 years. I absolutely loved it, because I got to make dreams turn into reality, on certain things that I was very passionate about. Fast forward that, left, went and worked in the healthcare industry, I often tell people after you work in the healthcare industry, you got to work in the alcohol industry. Um, but I did that for about 4 or 5 years, and then really went to wine and spirits and kind of found my passion. Found my passion as far as like giving people choice. The more libertarian I become every day, as I get older, and then also being like, what does the American dream mean for me? May be different than you, Nate. But you have every right to find that out. And then, after that, decided to, start my own firm. Took on a couple of clients in the space. Absolutely love it because I continue to be passionate about it. And also, again, going back to what we're seeing, is like I saw the people who took advantage of the American dream, and I applauded them. And I just do not like the fact that the federal government took it away after states had been regulating and passing legislation. And that's why I actually love the Klobuchar Senator Paul bill, which basically says if the states have decided what they're going to do on this issue, they get precedence. And so because that's kind of always who I've been. I don't want to tell you how to live your life, and I don't want you to tell me how to live mine. And as long as you're provided choices, that's the decisions you make in life.
I agree with you fully, man. I'm a unaffiliated registered voter, and I do say that proudly because I think that this has gotten really wild in the past, and I wasn't always like that.
Sure.
But in the past year and a half, 2 years, I re-registered because of that same reason. Is I don't believe that the two-party system as it stands right now is actually embracing the original libertarian views, not this weird thing where it's like, I do whatever I want, and if it hurts you, I don't care. No,
Right.
The original libertarian view, which is I'm going to do whatever I want, and it's not supposed to inhibit upon anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we should be going. And I hope that we eventually get back there into a centrist place. But until we get there, I think I also want to, before we get off this topic, you mentioned about the wine and spirits world. I want to give a compliment out, and I do want to name them, the Wine and Spirits of America, who are getting behind this, ignoring everything that's going on in the alcohol industry and the distributor world, and advocating for this, taking over some lobbying aspect of it, creating some educational materials for it. That's something that gave me a lot of hope moving forward in the past couple of months. And it's a good bridge that we needed as well for this. Now, if I can just keep getting nagging these beer guys, and I know you listen. So you beer guys are asleep at the wheel, snoring away. And the irony is that the brewing industry has the most to benefit from this because of the co-packing and manufacturing and distribution opportunities that exist, as well as over the bar.
And I'll say this, I remember talking to Chairman James Comer out of Kentucky, and he looked at us and he was like, when I was at Wine and Spirits, and he was like, this is just members of Congress. As people who are listening, go back to what we said with the family legacies and everything else. And the chairman was like, you guys brought credibility to this issue. That's not saying that anybody that was in the issue before they got involved didn't bring credibility. But again, it goes back to what I was saying about members of Congress and wanting to minimize the risk. And when these big time guys jump in and say, hey, this is good. We're going to do this right. We're committed to doing this right. It eases the members of Congress who are saying, okay, if you guys are getting involved, we got it. We can do this. Let's
play a scenario right now.
Sure.
The alcohol industry. Let's say the alcohol industry doesn't 100% get on board, because that's what will drive this over the line. If all these trade associations that are being like, we'll jump in whenever it's legal and all this other stuff, if they jumped in now and drove it over the finish line, it would pass. No ifs, ands, or buts. The pressure would be overwhelming for the lawmakers to not pass it. Now, flip the script. If this gets killed in November and the industry's dead, what do those trade associations in the alcohol industry look at their members 1 year, 2 years, 3 years from now? Because I'm 3.5 years sober, and I've worked in the industry 22 years. I got alcohol in my car all day long. It's in my house all day long. I could reach under my desk right now and grab it. I don't, because it's a product to me now, but I'm an advocate and a supporter of the industry. But what are you going to say? Because I'm not going back to drinking. I'm going back to selling it, but you think I'm going to destroy because I had an addiction, and I had pills and alcohol, and I 3.5 years ago went cold turkey. What got me out of it was hemp beverages and non-alcoholic beers. And I don't drink anything religiously. So somebody's going to say, oh, you just took one vice to the other. No, the molecule does not affect me the same exact way. I don't drink these things daily. I barely even drink them weekly because of my own regulations of how I live my life and my discipline and my sobriety. Now, do I drink them occasionally if I'm out at a party or something like that? Absolutely, because the anxiety and all that stuff, it gets to me, and I feel, the cravings or whatever else in those situations. But what I'm trying to say is there's not enough talk also about that sober community it saved my life. Like I tried to quit 5-6 times before because it was only duels and everything like that. And then all of a sudden Athletic came out and Brewdog, and then it started tasting good. And then I was able to.
I love Athletic. I love Athletic.
I've been trying to get Bill on here forever. So if anybody's listening, you tell Bill you got to get back to me. Yeah.
Look, you got to tell Bill this story. I'm not going to say the member of Congress, but we're sitting in Missouri. That's all I'll say. And we're driving down, and I introduced him because he took a tour of one of the facilities, and so I introduced him to Athletic beer, right? And he was like, "This is not alcoholic." I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "This is amazing." And so he's driving around with Athletic beer in his car as he's driving up. It runs in. Runs into a police officer, shows him the can and everything else. And I'm just sitting here being like, he is so proud to be drinking non-alcoholic beer while he's driving. But like, it's a choice, right? And there's some people who like the taste, but do not like the alcohol content. And again, it goes back to choice.
It does. So let's go back to what do you think these trade associations are going to say? Where it's like, where these guys are like, okay, we killed hemp because it was hurting us, but we're still hemorrhaging money. Where are we going here?
Yeah, man. Well, I will only say sometimes you can put slide decks to make it sound like things are still.
I mean, they massage the line extensions, the lime, the lemons. Like we can't flood the shelves.
At the end of the day, like it's one of those things that you bring up a very good point. Like sales are going down, right? So either one or two things has to happen. Either you bring something new to the market to fill that gap, right? Or you create something with what you got. Maybe this upcoming generation of people drink a lot more than their predecessors who would rather have a Diet Coke than a beer. I have no idea how that happens.
Waiting 5 to 10 years on this decline rate to get those people out.
I know, but like honestly, I don't know. I don't know because I'm sitting here so many times when I have this conversation and I'm dumbfounded because I'm just like, this is the easiest thing that you guys could take on. You guys could put it under your brand and you guys would shoot through the roof. And instead, you're looking at it as competition when it's your medicine.
That's it. You're sitting on the sidelines in the dugout when you're supposed to be in the pitcher's mound.
Yes. Like this is, and it arrived at the perfect time as far as decline was taking place, and it arrives, and instead, but no. But they do not pay me. I do not advise them. For those who are advising them, I hope that they have thought that year and a half, 2 years down the road. But this is the other thing that's going to happen too. And this is what I keep telling members of Congress. This issue isn't going away. And let's just say that it closes down and it's done in December. Bad actors are still there.
Oh yeah, they're thriving too because they're angry now.
Yeah. Now they really are underground. You've appropriated no funds to go and bust them, right? And they all tell, like when we talk to the National Association of Convenience Stores, they're phenomenal on this issue as well, because they want to have, safe, regulated, hemp drinks or hemp available at the convenience stores, and they were like, we don't allow those pesticides and everything else in our convenience store. And I'm sitting here being like, I know what convenience stores they're talking about, by the way. Everybody listening knows what convenience stores they're talking about. You walked into those convenience stores before, right? That's not the people that are playing by the rules. And so what you're going to have is that same town hall, maybe it's a year and a half, 2 years from now, that kid does get hurt. And they'll be like, well, we passed this legislation to outlaw it, but you didn't really do it. And again, you've seen this with alcohol. What happened when we tried to prohibit it? When prohibition started, guys?
My family and your family thrived in the moonshine.
Oh, thrive! Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! Like, but at the same time, it's like, again, has history not taught us anything? Yeah. You can't put the genie back in the box. Now let's regulate it. Let's do it right. You have an industry that wants to be, taxed, so it is legitimate, and let's just do it right. And I think that message is starting to grow. I'll give another shout out to Congressman BC from Texas and Congressman Morgan Griffith.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them are subcommittee chairs, Energy and Commerce, and they're phenomenal because they're sitting here like, let's hold hearings, let's bring people in, let's mark this up. Congresswoman Beth Van Dyne has introduced her bill. I know that Morgan Griffith and VC has introduced their bill. I'm hearing that Andy Barr and company have a bill that they're going to potentially be introducing. And the reason why I say all that is members, especially Morgan Griffith, are like, I have the jurisdiction. Let's do this, but he may need more time.
Yep.
And I will say this, Nick, what I have seen on the Senate side is the education. It used to just be Rand Paul and friend, right? But now it's like Klobuchar, Bennett, Smith, on the Dem side. And, you're getting more Republicans that are like, hey, tell me more about this. I want to listen more, because even Lindsey Graham from South Carolina, when he was like meeting with these kids who had MS that were taking these gummies, so they would stop their seizures, so they didn't have seizures, it really moved him. And so that's what I go back to as you guys, are continuing to talk to members of Congress, because it's election season, because they need your vote. But as you continue to talk to members of Congress, tell your story. Your story is what moves that needle.
There's been some times where some clips from our podcast have been given to lawmakers, and they've requested quotes off of the transcripts and things like that. So I'm very happy to be able to provide a media platform that gives those stories directly to those lawmakers. So everybody that's listening know that while this is a fun thing while you're driving, there's real value that's being done with this and being repurposed. So I also want to bring up a lot of these guys, and I'll pay attention to the time here, but a lot of these guys are very big on the opiate addictions and the opiate problems. And there's a lot of really interesting data that's coming out. I was at the Kentucky Normal Conference a couple months ago, the marijuana conference, and there's a lot of really interesting data coming out. I'm not going to quote it because I don't have the exact on the spot, but go ahead and look it up. Everybody check it out. The decrease in opiate addiction and opiate abuse when hemp beverages are introduced in a regulatory fashion into certain states. And also the other side is, for every hemp beverage brand that's out here and distributor that's out here that's saying, oh, I don't want a different, you said about let the states take care of it. I've had a lot of brands tell me in the hemp space, I don't want to deal with different laws for every state. Well, guess what? We've been dealing with that in the alcohol business since Prohibition ended.
Oh my goodness.
And I think if you think that there's going to be a uniform law that goes across, you're out of your mind.
Right.
So,
I agree with you.
Let's go with what are some, like, in the closing out part out here in the last few minutes, what are some things here with hemp beverage brands, distributors that are maybe in the dugout or on the bench? What are some advice that you can give them, as well as retailers, consumers? That's just sky's the limit on phone calls, emails? Tell your story, get your story in writing, get it to those lawmakers, whatever, carrier pigeon or email, whatever,
The thing I would say is this, members are paying attention. Members are listening. And I know people have said, well, we've been hearing that for 9 or 10 months. Sometimes it takes a while to tell a story, right? Sometimes a member is tone deaf until he's no longer tone deaf. I often tell people, I'm going to tell you, when Total Wine starts taking those hemp beverages off the shelves, the amount of suburban moms that are going to freak out and call their members of Congress, the amount of seniors. We didn't even hit on the seniors yet.
Yeah, you think Karen at the barbecue's bad. Wait till you take her drinks away.
Absolutely. I will tell people this. All right, this is a little DC thing for you. So in DC, when I worked on Capitol Hill, the easiest and yet hardest issue to work on was postal. Because postal, everybody is like, oh, we can save money if we did this, this, and this. And they would be like, you know what? We can save money if we close this post office in Morganton, North Carolina, small little post office. Do you understand the wave that member would get when they closed that small post office? And so members would think about it. And then all of a sudden they would go through the process, and the blowback was so big from their constituents. That's what kind of needs to happen right here. And I think right now members are starting to hear it. And I think it's going to continue to ramp up because I'm getting, again, emails from staffers that are like, hey, when is this going into effect again? Like, okay, not for them to be like, okay, now this is the top 3 issue that we've been getting over the last 3 weeks, right? I was talking to a member of Congress a couple weeks ago, and he was like, the hemp issue is the top 2 issue in his office, from the emails and the I don't know if people still write letters, but from the emails that they're getting, and the calls that they're getting, and that's got to continue, right? I think that we are closer than a lot of people realize. If I had to give an educated guess again, Nate, I don't know if there's enough time to put regulation in place, because I think there's so many chairman and ranking members that want to have their paws in it and go back and forth. I do believe if we do the work here in DC with the hearings, with the markups, with those regulation bills being talked about and discussed and hashed out and amended, I think an extension is quite possible, right? And that's what members who are with us are calling for. Give us time to do this right, because if not, we're going to throw something together and it's not going to work for anybody. So with that being said, you can stand on the sidelines, just don't cheer when we get it done.
See, that's the thing that really I'm not a vindictive person, and I don't hold resentment towards people, but I am going to laugh in your face if you sat on the sidelines and it does pass, or it passes and doesn't get banned, and then come Thanksgiving you're calling me and you're a distributor saying, "Hey, what brands you got?"
Right.
Because that's what my whole career is. I'm the guy you call when you want the pre-filter, you want the filtered brands and you want the best. You call me and I'll introduce you to the people. Those phone calls come after you denied my advocacy campaign participation, or you have rescinded it, which of those that know who listen, you have pledged money and rescinded your money. Don't call me come Thanksgiving. Don't call me in Thanksgiving.
Well, you know what? I tell you what, I'm going to give a shout out to Southern Crown, because I was thinking, Justin Ashby and Southern Crown, they're of like mobilizing.
Give that organization a big plug, because that's fantastic. Yeah, what they're doing.
Yeah, they've been out there mobilizing, saying whatever we need to do it, and they're like, how do we do it the right way? Let's get it done. Let's get it done right. And that's what we need, because again, when these members start hearing from the big dogs, like, hey, do this, but do it right, it does move, But again, hearing from the little guys, hearing their stories does go a long ways, especially during election season.
Exactly.
And that's what we always come back to. Right. And so that would be the other thing I would tell people, like, make this an issue. Like, not like when you go and talk to your member of Congress, or you talk to the candidate that's running, or you talk to your senator, be like, hey, are you going to support safely regulated hemp? And if they say no, okay, now you know where they are on an issue that's important to you. It may not be your only issue, but it goes into, your thought process of who you're going to vote for.
And I want to say too, like, for everybody that's going to do this, and if this is going to activate you to phone calls, emails, do not come with aggression. Do not come yelling at people. You will get nowhere, and your email will get deleted. All you need to do is tell your story, because your story matters. Tell them you enjoy this with your friends on the weekends and you decided to do this or that or whatever. Tell them what's going on. If you're a business owner, tell them how this affects your life, how it positively has affected your life. Because that's the thing at the end of the day. I just did an episode published today with Crescent 9, Crescent Canna, one of the top brands in IRI data across the country. They've had like 2 or 3 instances where something bad happened out of the millions of cans that they've sold. That's the story that needs to be told, is we are always going to hit adversities and incidences in every sort of CPG product. It's given. There's a reason why there's warnings on things. It's because something happened. But we didn't throw the baby out with the bathwater because some guy burned it. We don't stop drinking coffee because the guy jumped his McDonald's cup on his lap a couple years ago. We put a caution hot on the can, on the cup. So
you hit on something that I think needs to be emphasized, which is tell your story, but tell your story how you fixed it.
Exactly.
Right? Because that's the thing. Like, okay, so all right, so let's say that something's out there. It was labeled wrong. This is what we do it. This is how we tracked it down. Like, tell the story of, if you're a business, of how that happened. And again, invite these members to tour your facilities. These members love to tour the facilities and talk to your employees. I mean, they really do. And that, to me, is all of a sudden you're because a lot of times you can shoot the emails, you can do the phone calls, but to humanize it, right? To see like, oh, this thing's going to get taken away as we go into holiday season for Thanksgiving and Christmas. So there's going to be people who are laid off. There's going to be people who don't enjoy the benefits of a normal holiday season because I voted a certain way. Again, that hits a little different with members of Congress, but I would also emphasize what Nate was saying. We got to do this peacefully, because I cannot, it becomes 3 times as hard for people like me and others on the Hill if the member says this person started yelling at me and my daughter, or this person was throwing stuff, or this person cussed out my staff assistant. Please don't cuss out the office. Please don't. I mean, that hits a little bit hard to me, and members remember that.
Yes, absolutely. And it'll take us all backwards, and the work we put in is wasted. Perfect. Well, Dwayne, thank you so much, man. Like, man, seriously,
this was fun, man. I enjoyed this, man. We may have to do this again.
I'm down for it. And I want to tell you this too. I'm also starting tomorrow, sending open invites to lawmakers in their emails to come on the show. if you know any lawmakers that enjoy this type of, and please let them know they want to come out and speak if they're in support or even if they're in opposition. I love a good debate, and I love a good critical listening session as well. So please send anybody my way, and you can copy and paste that link for my calendar because they're going to be getting emails from me starting tomorrow where I'm going to invite them on, just like you just said. It's the human connection, and I'm going to be like, I'm bringing them on to tell their story and then tell their position, and that's really what it is. So
I tell you what I'll do is you send me that link. I've got about 5 or 6 members in mind right now that I can shoot it to.
Awesome, man. I appreciate that. Well, hey, thank you so much. And I'm going to kind of go through the closing out here. I want to remind everybody there's no script, there's no agenda. This is a completely organic conversation. Dwayne and I have never shaken hands. We've never shared a drink together. We've never even met, but we will be moving forward. I can tell you that part right now because this is a good conversation. This is a great rapid fire, too. We were jiving on that, and I like it. So I'm going to remind everybody as well, this world is a beautifully destructive place. When you're walking down the street, put your phone in your pocket, look at the strangers when you're walking down the street. When you're at the gas station filling up your cup of coffee, look to the person next to you, ask them how they're doing, shut your mouth, and listen to what they say. Focus on them. And my challenge to everybody else is 5 minutes of kindness to a stranger every week. We talk about ROIs all the time. 20 minutes a month of kindness to strangers. You don't know what's going on. Your life might be full. You might have all these beautiful things going on, but there's a lot of people that aren't. And that human connection we're talking about throughout this episode is so important. You could save somebody's day, list them through the next month, year, or whatever. And at the worst case scenario is they decided they didn't want to be on this earth. And that moment of human connection might actually give them the hope that they need to give it another week, another month, and keep trying. So I want everybody to understand, while this show is all fun and games and it's about Ready to Drink podcast and it's about drinks, it's also because drinks are the social bridge that we need in this world, whether it's water, coffee, booze, hemp, it doesn't matter, mushrooms, whatever it is, everybody's got their path because this is America, and that's the beautiful thing about it. So Dwayne, thank you so much for having the cojones to come on too, because a lot of people want questions, they want everything, and I deny them, and then they don't come on. So thank you, man.
This has been
appreciate it.
And those guys who don't come on, maybe they need a hemp drink. Tell them so they can come on next time, because this was good.
Absolutely, Dwayne. I'll send you that email later on this week, man. Thanks you so much.
All right, man. Take it easy.
You too.